As we celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week in our country, today I am happy to nominate my very own Teacher and Principal of the Year all in one, in Mrs. Jasmine McFalls of McFalls Academy. I am excited because Jasmine is the epitome of what we talk about, what we espouse to be every single day when we talk on our show about the future of education in our city. Jasmine did what so many talk about doing and never really followed through, and she started her own school. I'm excited to hear her story, to have her share her story, and for you to learn why I think she deserves to be the Teacher of the Year, the Principal of the Year. Welcome to the show, please, Mrs. Jasmine McFalls. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
McFalls Academy is a school that is looking to change education as the way we know it. And what I mean when I say that is when we see education, when we think of school, we typically see this traditional setting of how students are supposed to learn. And I like to think of McFalls Academy as a way that's taking things that are in the traditional setting and doing them in a more of a non-traditional way that more specifically caters to the needs of each individual student as well as each individual family. The students, because they are young and they're just coming in, we have 4- and 5-year-olds, so they don't really know anything different. I would say the case would be a lot different if I started with grades 3, 4, and 5, where I like to call it unschooling, where you come in and you're trying to rid them of those traditional ways of how school is run and replacing them with different or alternative ways to present education to them.
Unschooling, a label that has been assigned to some of the things that you've been doing for years with your own children that is extremely important to our community. Unschooling. This method has become more and more popular in recent years as parents and society begins to examine the real purpose of education, how to be more intentional about what they're learning, and to tell you at the same time that it is the keystone to making sure that your children grow up and are educated in a way that your family values. Unschooling is taking learning to a whole nother level. It is about educating children through living rather than standard curriculum and content that comes from the school.
So we have grades pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade right now. I like to highlight more the age range than the grades because I feel like a lot of times we get stuck in the grades and what kids should be able to do within the specific grade or age span, and we just know that in reality that's not how things work. We know that students develop at their own pace. They each have unique strengths, unique needs, and I think that that's something that we need to take into consideration when we're planning for instruction. One thing that you would notice that you usually don't in a traditional setting, students are not doing the same thing. You walk in, one student might be on the computer receiving education through more of a technology form. I usually might have a group of 2 students at the table who are receiving specific skills at my table. A lot of hands-on, so very few. What distinguishes McFalls Academy from other institutions is work cycle. A work cycle basically is where I have students that are around the classroom doing a range of different tasks, and they're not sitting in desks. They might be laying on the floor, they might be sitting on carpet squares, and so it's very flexible, it's very fluid. And then I also have a lot of hands-on. So that maybe I plan to do something very specific on Tuesday, but we came in on Monday, and these students really showed me that this is what they needed instead of what I planned. And so it's very individualized, very personalized, and so I'd say that's what distinguishes McFalls Academy from a lot of other education institutions.
Excellent. It's another good reason that we're talking about doing things differently and trying new things. Excellent. So to that point, one of the things that we always want to ask is our families, our parents to think back to the way school was designed and where it was created.
Yes.
And whether or not it was created with our kids in mind. And the answer to that is it was not.
Yes.
One of the things we have to do is let our students be drivers of their own learning. Students are curious. When they come to us at 5 and 6 year old, they are eager to explore the world. It is not our job to take that away, but instead to cultivate that in a way that allows their curiosity to fester and their creativity to grow.
So anytime we get an opportunity to experience an educational setting that is personalized and designed for your child's needs, we want to take full advantage of that. And that's what, Jasmine is kind of explaining for us today, how she's been able to take full advantage of what they bring into the classroom each and every day, and why she happens to be our Principal Teacher of the Year for that reason.
You have each individual student who knows what they need. It's very student guided, but also teacher directed, in that I take what they need and I say, okay, here are your choices. And so students throughout the day choose how they're going to learn and what that's going to look like for them. And I try not to draw the line or say, well, that's not what we plan today. It's, oh, well, I never really thought about it that way. Maybe that is something that you should do to help your learning.
So let me ask you this. When you talk about making sure that you have the needs of every child in mind, and talk to us about how's that received by the students?
What I have taken is MAP assessment, and basically that provides me information on how students started off in the fall, where they are in the winter, around winter break time, and then where they are at the very end of the year before summer break. And my students have shown tremendous growth. 100% of my students grew in both math and literacy, and so I know this form of instruction is working. Usually when you have students that are taking the MAP assessment, the average growth is around 9 points from where they last took the test, and a lot of my students were growing from 14 to 15 points within one test span. And so I also keep what I call data folders that has information and it shows where a lot of my students started, like with writing their name in August as opposed to where they are now. And you can just see the growth of how far they've come, and it can be really encouraging because I'm with them every day, and so it's a lot harder for me to see the growth. But then you have another teacher who may have come and visited McFalls Academy in October, and now they're coming now and they're like, wow, they've come a long way. And so I like to look back at student work samples to show parents or even prospective families that, look, this is what this child was doing in October and this is what they're doing now. So I know it's working.
so your assessment maps, it's diagnostic in nature so that you can see what the kids need,
Yes.
but also it maps growth, which
Yes.
is very different than a standardized test.
Yes.
And so your students do not take an end of the year standardized test.
No, ma'am.
That's another good reason
ma'am.
that we're talking about doing things differently and trying new things. All right, so here's another question I have. Where do you see McFalls in 5 years or 10 years? What do you see for the future of McFalls Academy?
An honest answer to that question is I'm not 100% certain. I am, again, I'm just following the Lord's lead, and when I came into this, I didn't really come into it with, I came into it with a vision and what I wanted to look like. But that vision is continuously being reshaped as I come in and out of that school every day, because I'm seeing that maybe this is the way that I should do this. And so I've learned to become a lot more flexible, because maybe this is the vision that I had in mind for McFalls Academy, but it's going in a different direction. And so that's why I like to say, I like to be very forthcoming and very transparent that I can't say for certain where McFalls Academy is going to be in 15 years, but what I do know is that the Lord is going to do more than I could ever even fathom. So when I finally put it out there, it was this feeling of, oh my gosh, this is it, we're doing this, and there was no turning back. So
no turning back. Now, something I noticed when you were talking, you mentioned called and you talked about God. So tell us how God, influenced you in making this decision.
Yes.
How did you come to that decision
Yes.
in your relationship, your spiritual relationship with God? Michelle Pennick. I've spent the last 22 years as principal at Mill Creek Leadership Academy. Before retiring, one of the things that I became increasingly concerned about is what was happening to our black girls and our black boys in the educational system. And to that end, I've developed the ABCs of educational injustice and my own philosophy about what could really make an innovative and progressive change in our educational system. Well, this is how you do it. The ABCs. A stands for abolish standardized testing. It's necessary because we know that 50% of college professors think that the test scores from the SAT and the SAT are worthless. They're useless in terms of what students come to school prepared to do and how they have been academically prepared to do it on a college campus. The truth is, achievement tests, our standardized tests, are still very much culturally biased, and it's time for us to stand up and recognize there is another way. B stands for ban suspensions, and this happens at the age of 4 and 5 when our black boys and girls first enter school and when they come across students and a culture that they've never seen before. And if they are not quick to get in line and follow the protocol that has already been put in place, they are quick to be labeled bad. And bad students get suspension. And bad students who are suspended grow up to be criminalized, to go be a part of the school-to-prison pipeline, and be dehumanized by our society. Ban suspensions means we have to be very intentional about being restorative. And now C stands for cancel curriculum that does not cultivate curiosity. As we drop standardized testing, as we begin to build relationships by banning suspensions, one of the natural pieces of that is the freedom and the opportunity to create curriculum that cultivates that curiosity. That families begin to create pathways where they see their child going. In collaboration with the school, design plans that make that possible, that follow the curriculum for the child and their needs under conditions that make anything possible. Abolish standardized testing, ban suspensions, cancel curriculum that does not cultivate curiosity. Those are the ABCs of educational. right, you guys, we are talking to Jasmine McFalls of McFalls Academy, and we're learning why she has been nominated and celebrated by me, Principal Penix, as the Principal Teacher of the Year. So Jasmine and I met maybe a year ago, officially. I had actually been on a search to find people in our community who had opened home schools or private schools. There were very few then,
Yes.
as there are now. And several people pointed me to McFalls Academy in this wonderful flyer, this little black boy with finger paint all over his hands and a smile from ear to ear, similar to your own. And I thought, I want to meet whoever put this out.
Yes.
And we started a conversation. So take us back to when you actually put out that flyer. When you
Yes.
pressed send, what was that like?
Start this time by introducing myself. My name is Jasmine McFalls, and I'm the founder of McFalls Academy.
Yes, so when I originally posted the flyer onto Facebook, I immediately felt a rush of adrenaline go over me. I also had this deep sense, this deep feeling of uncertainty, of just wondering where this was going to go, how successful it was going to be. But at that moment, I just knew that this was something that I was called to do. And I was, called to education, and I always knew that there was this desire, this pull to do something more. So I just felt like this was my opportunity, because especially with the pandemic, parents were scrambling of what they wanted to do with their students going into this school year. So when I finally put it out there, it was this feeling of, oh my gosh, this is it, we're doing this, and there was no turning back. So
no turning back. Now, you started a school in the middle of a pandemic,
Yes.
and in the middle of racial unrest,
Yes.
social injustice being exposed, everything that 2020 came with it. And here we are at the back end, we hope, of this pandemic. Talk to me about the lessons you've learned your first year as the principal, owner, and teacher at McFalls Academy.
I would say that one of the most important lessons that I've learned as a new administrator and as an educator is to trust myself a little more. Because when I came out of the public education system, I grew up in public education. I taught in public education. And when I came out of the public education system, it was very difficult for me to discern what I needed to take with me from the public education system and what I needed to change. And so it's very hard because, I was doing this on my own. I wasn't doing this alongside a whole team of faculty or a grade level team. It was just me. And so I had to trust myself with those hard decisions at the end of the day. And so I say one of the most important lessons that I've learned is to trust myself. And also on the other end, I learned it's very important that I am slow to speak and quick to listen, which is a very hard lesson to learn. And so I've learned to listen to the parents of my students a lot more. So.
Right. Are there parents used to what school was like, and you have to unlearn them too?
And so a lot of times what these parents have experienced is education during an era of, or even grandparents during the era of the Industrial Revolution, where it was all about efficiency. It was all about getting things done quickly and efficiently. And so what I like to say is that we're no longer within the Industrial Revolution. And the thing about that is that model assumes that all students need the same thing, or that one size fits all. And that's just not the case. And so I have to, explain to parents in parent-teacher conferences and orientations over the phone. I am very transparent with them about the direction that I'm going in with the school, just so they're aware and just making sure that we are on the same page.
Excellent. Right. I love that. I love that Jasmine is modeling for us right now why it was so important for her to be on the show today, because there are some people out there right now who are saying to themselves, I would love to open a school, or I wish I could. And they have in their mind this picture of a mini JCPS, a mini elementary school right here in our city. And Jasmine's saying just the opposite, to trust yourself and to start out small And it's about prayer and asking God to order your steps. And that's why she's on with us today. Okay, so considering what you learned, what are the changes that you see taking place for McFalls in the fall?
Well, in the fall, we have numerous things that I am putting into place. And so now that I've got this first year under my belt, I'm going in and saying, here's what I really want to do next year. Whereas last year, it was what you said. It was like more of a mini JCPS. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, just trying to mirror it. But I've learned that that's not what I want. And so every teaching philosophy, no teaching philosophy is perfect. So you kind of have to put them together and do what works for you. And so what I've done is I've taken the Montessori approach. I've taken some things that I've seen and implemented in public education, and I'm putting them together. And so those are a lot of the changes that I'm making next year, and just wanting to be a lot more intentional with a lot of those practices that I've already started this year.
How are you wrapping it up? What are some upcoming events at McFalls Academy?
I am so excited about the end of the year for McFalls Academy. They actually have a farm day / field day coming up.
Yeah.
So these past few weeks in science, we've been studying the life cycle of chickens.
And I've seen it all over Facebook, little baby chickens hatching.
Yes, ma'am. So we've had 15 healthy chicks to hatch outside of their eggs. We incubated them for 21 days. The kids saw the whole process, and now they're running around the inside of their little tub in the classroom. And so we have a farm day coming up where Farmer Steve, who is well known across the city, will be coming and bringing his farm animals. He's bringing little baby pigs, he's bringing little ducklings, he's bringing his big turkey, who most of the students across Louisville probably know. And the second part will be geared toward the farm aspect. He's going to be growing tomatoes with them that they can take home with them. And then we're also going to have lunch on the lawn in the middle of the day where families can come, they can participate. In the afternoon, when you think of field day, whatever you name it, it's going to be there. The sack races, the parachutes, we're going to be doing water games. But apart from farm day and field day, we also have a last day of school field trip coming up to celebrate the successes of McFalls Academy and the hard work of our students and families.
Noticed when you were talking, you mentioned called and you talked about God. So tell us how God, influenced you in making this decision.
Yes.
How did you come to that decision
Yes.
in your relationship, your spiritual relationship with God?
I just feel like God works through other people as well as the experiences that you encounter throughout your life. And so I originally taught within the public school system, and I just always felt like there was this extra drive to always do something more. And within the classroom, I just felt like I was very limited as to what I could do. An event happened within the classroom that strengthened my desire to doing something. I was still doing what I was passionate about, but I was doing it outside of the scope of the public school system. And so I prayed about it, I talked to other people about it, and I encountered numerous individuals who said, you know, this was something that I wanted to do, but I never did it and I regret it. And so I just decided that I needed to heed that wise counsel. Just doors begin to open, and like when doors start to open, that's God's way of saying, okay, this is for you. It's your time. It's time to step out. And so I just stepped out on faith, and I continue to take that leap of faith every day.
I'm seeing this and I'm thinking for the first time, listen, I trust Principal Pennick. She wouldn't have anybody on the show that she didn't have confidence in, that she didn't know was doing right by our kids. I'm listening to Jasmine. I'm hearing her story. I'm hearing, most importantly, how she's letting God use her order her steps. I'm hearing the fantastic stories about growth in her children and the fun that they've had this year. Maybe this is a right place for my child next year. How do we get in touch with you? And for those parents out there, how expensive is it?
Yes, ma'am. So the first thing that came to mind with this question is I want parents and families to know that McFalls Academy is a Christian-based school. But we welcome students and families from all walks of life. I've had students enrolled that don't believe in God at all, and their family is 100% comfortable with them coming every day. They've loved it, and so I don't want anybody to think that we exclude anybody, because McFalls Academy is open to all kinds of families, and I love diversity. I want more diversity, but I would say that right now, McFalls Academy is 90-95% African American student population. So for my African American families out there who want to look into private school but don't see a lot of private schools that are culturally responsive to the African American culture, to consider McFalls Academy. And so for anyone who is interested, we also do tours every Saturday, or not every Saturday, but tours on Saturdays. So what you do is you can call me at 502-777-3365.
Say that one more time.
502-777-3365.
All right.
You can also visit our website to schedule a tour at McFallsAcademy.com. Our website also includes a lot of other information about the school. As far as the expenses, to know that part-time is an option, and a lot of families have been interested. And so there's different options available. The tuition for students who are full-time is $175 a week. That includes the cost of meals, as well as other resources that go into education, books, supplies. And so on our website, it actually lays out what tuition does cover, as well as what's not covered under tuition for prospective families who are interested in that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so you know the number to call. You know McFalls Academy, the owner, the principal, the teacher, the leader. Where is McFalls Academy?
McFalls Academy is located in downtown Louisville, Shelby Park. It's located at inside of the Shelby Park Community Center at 600 East Oak Street.
If you haven't seen the pictures, you need to see for yourself. Go to the website, follow Jasmine on Facebook. You will see beautiful children smiling and happy, and most importantly, learning. I'm excited because today I got to nominate my Principal Teacher of the Year, and I chose to use it to honor someone who took a leap of faith, who trusted God, who put everything this show has been about all year into action by starting her own school. I am so proud of you, Jasmine McFalls.
Thank you.
I hope everybody out there sees that there's alternatives. I hope somebody out there is encouraged to say, you know what, if Jasmine can do it, maybe I can too. I would love to come back this time next year celebrating 10 other wonderful principal leaders who decided to step out on faith and do the same thing Jasmine doing. Until then, it has been my pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank
you.
To
all of you, you've been wonderful. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Principal's Office. I am Principal Penix, aka Michelle Penix. As always, to God be the glory, and thank you.